And a lot of advisors, first, haven't done the self-assessment to even know what they want their practice to look like.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in partnering, selling your firm, you really can't communicate. You don't know what you're looking for because you don't know what your vision is, right? So it seems like you did a lot of internal work to figure out what you wanted out of your practice after a while and finding the partner that could help you both sort of realize that.
We did a lot of that work. I mean, values was our very first conversation. What are our shared values? Several hours just talking about our values. But we absolutely have a shared vision. Another thing that I think was really important that I don't hear a lot of people talking about in this conversation was we talked about our own personal timelines and our own personal financial situations
Right.
really early.
Really?
And why I think that's important is because I've seen some partnerships that, the two partners were at really different life stages. So one wants an exit and the other doesn't. That sort of thing can be a challenge. So we were on a similar timeline. And then the other thing is that I've seen definitely be a challenge for other partners is misaligned sort of personal financial goals. So, if one of you really needs a significant salary and the other person is happy to invest back in the business, there can be a mismatch there. So we talked about those two things pretty early on, and we were very much on the same page in both regards.
Welcome back to another episode of The Advisor Journey. I'm super excited about this one. I have my good friend, Danika, on the podcast with me today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Desarte. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you in the seat today. I'm super excited about just hearing about your journey. I'm really excited about learning more about the merging process because it could be good and it could be bad. But before we do that, why don't you introduce yourself to the advisors that are listening today?
Sure. My name is Danika Waddell. I am based in Seattle, Washington, and my firm is called Zena Financial Planning. So I actually launched it just about 5 years ago, July 2020, and about just a little bit less than a year ago, merged with another firm. We kept the Zena name. Our practice focuses on professional women, particularly women in tech.
Where did the journey start? I mean, you obviously 5 years ago, you started your own firm, but there had to be kind of a prelude to this, right? So talk to us about that experience and what made you jump and start your own firm.
I've only been in the industry for a little bit more than 10 years, so I'm about 11 years in, and I had worked at a couple RIAs in Seattle prior to launching my own firm, and that was pretty good, actually. I don't really have any complaints working for another existing RIA. I really liked my work. I really liked the people I worked with. And there was an incident at my last firm that just, it was not great. It was a little bit of a crisis. And it threw my whole world kind of upside down from the perspective of I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the industry. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in that role. And so I did a lot of reflecting. It was also 2020, so it was like early COVID days. So everybody's kind of like, what's happening in my life anyway? What are my priorities? Then from that point, I just, I was sort of looking around at other alternatives of just getting a job at another firm. And I didn't really see a place that spoke to me. Nobody was doing what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I think the only option is for me to launch a firm.
What did you want to do specifically? Because I feel like advisors often have something in mind and they have a hard time bridging that this is what I'm doing, this is what's available, but this is what I actually want to do. Sometimes the only real option is to start your firm because it doesn't exist in the world yet. So what exactly did you want to do? And talk to me about the searching process.
I definitely had a target audience in mind. And even though it wasn't actually women in tech right out of the gate, that was part of it. But I had some other niches. I sort of had 2+ niches when I first launched. So it wasn't so much about women in tech per se, but I definitely wanted to serve a narrower age range. I really wanted to serve people kind of 10, 15 years on either side of me. Yeah. So I was in my mid-40s at the time. So it's I want to work with people in their 30s to 50s. But I didn't really want to work with retirees at the time. That's changing now as I'm getting a little bit closer to retirement. I'm like, oh, okay, I could see the value in that. But I wanted to work with a narrower audience. I definitely saw the benefit in niching, even though it took me a little while to sort of finalize on the women in tech niche. But I really wanted to explore some of the life planning aspects of our work, more qualitative work. And I just didn't really see a lot of other firms doing that.
All right, so outline that process for us. I feel like this is one of the things that advisors struggle with, especially when they leave other firms. So when they leave other firms, essentially they just try to replicate that firm in their new practice, and it doesn't go well, right? Especially if you're starting from zero. I don't know if that was the case from you, but 1% on zero assets is zero. You know what I mean? So talk to us about your methodology. How did you want to serve the clients? How did you want them to feel, right? What did you charge? Like those things that would differentiate yourself from maybe the firm that you had just left.
The firm I left was actually really unique because it was hourly only. So we did not manage any assets. And the work was mostly doing a one-time plan for people. So they would come in, we would do a whole bunch of work, and then sort of deliver a plan, the proverbial 75-page book and kind of go like, here you are. And then we would send them on their way. And I worked there for several years. And again, I really liked the work, but I did notice after several years of working with, some people would come back a year or two later for kind of a tune-up. And I would just see repeatedly that people actually hadn't done any of the work.
Right.
Like we gave them this long list of things to do, and it was kind of like, okay, you're on your own now. And so that was a huge part of it when I launched, was like I really wanted to be part of the process of implementing. And so even to this day, like it's extremely important to me that we don't just give people recommendations and expect them to follow through. Like if you need me to get on the phone with you and make that happen, if you want to do a screen share together and make sure it happens, like whatever the steps are, I really want to facilitate the process because everybody means well. But realistically, life happens and the stuff gets put on the back burner. So that was kind of my biggest thing right out of the gate, was just that I really wanted to be as involved as possible with the implementation process.
That's awesome. Talk to me about like niching. I feel like on this podcast we talk about that a lot, right? Like, oh, you're niching. You should pick a client. You should build your entire practice around that. But why did you choose women? One, and then how did you build around that niche?
I mean, women, I think it's fairly obvious, but women are not typically super well served by financial services. So I wanted to create a firm, and I'm happy to work with men. I do work with men. Like I don't want to be exclusive in working with women, but I wanted to create a place where women felt really comfortable. I often hear from women that they talked to some other financial person, whether it was a financial advisor or some other professional that would kind of make them feel stupid or, make them feel guilty for having credit card debt or anything like that. So I really wanted to prioritize just creating a firm where women were the center of every conversation, and not an afterthought. The tech part of it, I mean, to be perfectly honest, like there's several reasons. Seattle is just such a dense tech area that there's so much of it. So I was pretty comfortable with it anyway. Yeah. And my husband works in tech. Before we even got together, he was at Amazon.com way back in the early 2000s. And when we first got married, like I was doing our taxes and all these other things, and I was like, what are these RSU things? And this is, again, before I was a financial advisor. So I was learning about stock compensation, and I was like, gosh, there must be hundreds, thousands of people in Seattle that are kind of going through similar things where they've never experienced getting equity compensation. They don't understand the taxes. They're really surprised the first year when they get a big tax bill because they were under withholding through the year. So I got really comfortable just with those kind of issues as they came up in our personal life. And so it just felt like kind of a natural fit.
No, that makes sense. I got a question, and I think this is a learning opportunity for a lot of the advisors, men or women, that might be listening to the show. I hear this a lot. We actually were just filming with Kathy Curtis, and she serves women, right? In the San Francisco Bay Area, similar to you, saw the opportunity early and just have been underserved or neglected by their financial person, quote unquote. You said, the way that people talk to women might be not right. Like, give us a tutorial on how you should have that conversation. I don't think I've asked anybody that question, but I'm pretty sure there are biases in the way that people approach the conversation with, a professional woman versus a couple, right, with a man at the table. So why don't we talk about it?
And many of my clients are very successful professionally, but they don't have a lot of confidence around their money. And so number one, I would say, when you are talking to anyone, but specifically a woman, like every experience is valid. Every question is valid. So making somebody feel stupid for like, oh, you don't know what an ETF is? Like, of course you don't want to judge or talk down to people in any way. I think the other big thing that I see a ton in my practice is, again, these women that are very successful and very confident in almost all aspects of their lives, with the exception of finances. And they'll say things to me like, well, I'm really bad with numbers. And I always stop them. So I would encourage anybody who ever hears anyone, man or woman, say that, to say something like, actually, I'm going to reframe that for you. You're not good with numbers yet. You haven't had an opportunity to learn. You haven't been in an environment where you felt, comfortable enough to ask questions. So I'm here to establish that environment for you. And let's, any question that you have is fair game. And let's really build that confidence for you, because all of the women that I work with are fully capable and smart. There's no reason why they lack this confidence. They just haven't had the opportunity. So I think we as advisors have there's so much potential to really facilitate that kind of growth in our clients. Like, hey, you don't understand what a Roth, the difference between a traditional Roth IRA. Let's have that conversation for 10 minutes. And then you can walk out here and tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have clients who are now like evangelists with their friends, and they'll be like, I told everybody about how they need a healthcare, proxy and a living will. And I'm like, that's awesome, because now they can advocate among their peer group, which I just think is amazing.
Yeah, and you're a part of the implementation process now. So planning, investment advisement, right? Doing all that work. Timestamp, like from 0 to, let's say, like your first $1 million in assets. That probably was difficult, right? And I'm sure there's an advisor watching that right now is trying to meet that milestone. Like, take us along this journey. Like, when I hit 0 to this, these were my biggest pain points, right? Because I think there's lessons in those pain points in that growth trajectory. So from your eyes, going from 0 to, let's say, your first $1 million, and then you can scale up from that. And tell us some of the things that you remembered either being challenges or triumphs during that time.
It's interesting for me because I didn't actually start even managing assets at all.
Wow.
So I actually started as an hourly firm. Even though I wanted to work with people on an ongoing basis, it was still an hourly model. That's in Washington State. It's very easy to get approved with an hourly model, and everything else was going to be slower, with the exception of AUM. So that was how I launched, was as hourly. I don't think I added any AUM for at least 18 months and possibly longer. So that part of it, revenue was there. But AUM-wise, that was always kind of like a lagging indicator for me. And there's pros and cons to all of these things. I've definitely kind of come over to the world of AUM over the years. I'm like,
Really?
oh, it's really much easier when you're managing people's assets. And, it's much better from a revenue perspective. There's a lot of reasons.
What are the challenges with the hourly fee? Let's just walk through them. Like, when you
Oh,
bill
hourly? There's a
what are
lot
the
of
pros and
challenges.
cons?
Yeah, the pro is you can bill for your time. So if somebody's, takes a lot of time and it's a really demanding project or client, you can charge more for it, right? So it's like, oh, I thought it was going to take 3 hours, but it took 10. In theory, you can bill for as much time as you spend. So I think that's a pro. It's very simple. It's very easy to understand. It's a really hard business to build and run and be profitable on the hourly model. And one of the biggest challenges I had with it is that clients they'd always be worried about the clock running. Like, they would intentionally not want to chit chat because, oh, heaven forbid we spend 5 minutes at the beginning of a phone call talking about what's happening in their personal life, because they're like, well, I just paid, $50 for that. So clients were very sensitive to the clock running. And also, people wouldn't necessarily reach out because, again, they were concerned about getting a bill. So like, they might have a question, but they wouldn't reach out to me because they didn't want a bill that then might have led to some problems. Like, they might have made a bad decision because they didn't reach out to me. So hourly, I'm pretty firmly anti-hourly for the most part. I think, again, for some practices and for some people, you can build a business that way, but I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
And it puts a lot of friction between just communicating, which is like so foundational. Like, how can you have a successful relationship if you don't have open lines of communication?
Kind of hard. It's kind of impossible. I look at you as somebody that I've always known that does quality work, cares about her clients, right? Is going to like go above and beyond. But I think that even myself, as I was running my practice, I felt like I never wanted to charge too much. And it was kind of a draw for people to come work with me. Like, oh, well, you're going to pay 1.5 here. You'll save money here and get the same quality. But I'm learning as I mature, right? that is detrimental to my well-being and my practice. And I think a lot of advisors, especially young advisors who might have not done this for 50 years. You know what I mean? They want to grow, they want to scale. And the best way to do that is to create very obvious differences between you and the competition. I want to talk about just your journey into emerging practices. I find that a lot of advisors want community and they get in the game and they're solo players. And whether they admit it or not, it's tough. Like building any business is tough, but the advisory business specifically, it's regulated, as you know. Compliance is a job in its own, right? Then you have to market and find your clients. Talk to me about those mental gymnastics. Like, should I merge? Should I sell? I don't know what the thoughts were, but take me through that process.
I knew pretty early on in launching my firm that I did not want to remain solo. I definitely, I did find community. I found a lot of sort of pockets of community that were really supportive and amazing. And I would have never, I don't think I would have stayed in the business as long as I have if I didn't have that community. So I knew I wanted to partner, but I also did not want to rush it. I really wanted it to be the right fit. And I saw so many other people entering into partnerships. And then a couple years later, the partnership
Yeah.
dissolved or whatever. So I was really aware of that. I do think when I ultimately found the partner that I have now, there was something pretty immediate where we were like, oh, this is special. And there were all these sort of practical reasons for it, like, oh, there's, automatic business continuity and there's, we can sort of divide duties and all these other things. But I think for the two of us, what we realized was that the joy and the excitement that we both get from working together is actually the reason. Like those other things are kind of side benefits and they're nice. Like for sure, it's really nice to be able to say, okay, that my partner's got compliance. I don't have to think about it. And I'm not saying that those aren't valid reasons to pursue a partnership, but for us, it was really, we love building a practice together with a shared vision. And it's so meaningful to us that the other stuff is just it's secondary.
That's a good answer. And I was going to ask you like what the rubric was for that and explaining that to somebody who might be interested in partnering, but you sort of hit the nail on the head. I think it starts with that shared vision. And a lot of advisors first haven't done the self-assessment to even know what they want their practice to look like. So if you're interested in partnering, selling your firm, you really can't communicate. You don't know what you're looking for because you don't know what your vision is, right? So it seems like you did a lot of internal work to figure out what you wanted out of your practice after a while and finding the partner that could help you both sort of realize that.
We did a lot of that work. I mean, values was our very first conversation. What are our shared values? We spent several hours just talking about our values. But we absolutely have a shared vision. Another thing that I think was really important that I don't hear a lot of people talking about in this conversation was we talked about our own personal timelines and our own personal financial situations really early.
Really?
And why I think that's important is because I've seen some partnerships that, the two partners were at really different life stages. So one wants an exit and the other doesn't. That sort of thing can be a challenge. So we were on a similar timeline. And then the other thing is that I've seen definitely be a challenge for other partners is misaligned sort of personal financial goals. So, if one of you really needs a significant salary and the other person is happy to invest back in the business, there can be a mismatch there. So we talked about those two things pretty early on, and we were very much on the same page in both regards. I think for our work with our clients, we want to continue to serve people in a similar fashion, kind of life planning focused, as long as we are experiencing joy and our clients are experiencing joy, like in their lives. Those supersede almost everything else. Like if that's not happening, then there's a real problem, basically. So that's kind of the mission, I think, with regards to sort of the demographic we're serving and just the experience of working in the firm. Long term, we've been having a lot of conversations about what an exit looks like, and have kind of revised our initial trajectory a little bit. And it's not finalized, but I think we're starting to think about what that strategy looks like and then what we need to do to position ourselves for a sale, basically, in however many years.
Yeah. Do you have like annual goals in terms of like how many people you want to impact positively through your practice? And let's just talk about that because I think when you come from an hourly circumstance to running your firm, trying to scale to get to that eventual exit, you have to be laser focused on what you want to achieve, right? Like I think a lot of advisors are just sort of flying through the stuff. You know what I mean? Every day,
Yeah.
meet with clients, get a new client. But I think it's super important to sort of have a goal in mind.
Yeah.
You have that with your new partner, and it helps to have more expertise, more hands,
Yeah.
and a partner to go through the fire with. But
Hmm.
when you think about, sort of getting to that goal, what are things that you guys have to do this year, right, to be on track to get to that exit?
In the short term, we are looking at SEC registration. So we're not quite there, but we expect to be there by the end of this year for sure, and possibly in Q3. And we need compliance support. There's some changes we need to make on the compliance side. So that's our very short term focus, is kind of getting to SEC registration and making sure that that process is as smooth as it can be. I would say other things. We've gotten through the majority of the merger, like paperwork and administrative work. We're still fine tuning some of our processes. We've done a lot of work there, but I'd say it's not 100% done. So there's some work to do on making sure that all of our clients are being served the same way.
Hmm.
So we're close, but there's definitely a little bit more refinement that could happen there. Um, Along with that, I think sort of fee changes,
Yeah.
refining our ideal client, and getting ready to kind of really aggressively do some marketing in
I was just gonna ask that
2026.
question. All right, so let's talk about marketing for a
Yeah.
minute. Like, what are you doing now or have done in the past? Talk to us about the results of that, sort of those campaigns. And then, like, what would you be interested in doing to get to that SEC registration, which is like the place where a lot of advisors want to go?
Our focus has just been on getting the businesses merged and getting through all that paperwork. And we've had such a steady flow of prospects this year that's been like, well, we don't really need to be doing a lot of marketing, but I don't want to just sort of sit back and
Yeah.
and assume it's always going to be like that, because there's always lulls. I have in the past done some video stuff, and I really like video. Whether I've done some Instagram, both Instagram lives and a variety of things on Instagram. I've done a little bit with YouTube, not quite as much on the YouTube front. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I would much rather do video than like writing blogs and kind of distributing. I don't know how many people really read blogs anymore. So I'd be most interested in kind of going down the video path, but I don't know if that looks like interviews or just short educational stuff. I do think short is better, so I'm a pretty big fan of like short form content.
Why do you think people are afraid of video? Because I was, as an advisor, it took me a long time to like turn on my camera and put my face out there. But I saw the benefits after doing that, right? It was like people felt like they knew who I was before meeting me. They knew my style, my voice, right? It felt like the introductory meeting was just getting to meet me in person at the
Right.
end of the day,
A
because they had
formality.
already made their decision from watching a number of videos online. So being that that's one of your ways to market, talk to me about like, one, getting over the mental hurdle of looking dumb,
Yeah.
trying to record your first video, and the impact that it had on your business.
It is intimidating for sure. And if you've never done it before, it can feel really awkward. One of my strategies, honestly, is to keep it as not produced, not rehearsed. I like to just kind of, be out for a walk and like whip out my phone and record a video for a couple minutes. And it's like, I'm clearly not in a studio and I haven't done my makeup, and, it's very casual. And that to me takes some of the pressure off of it being sort of perfect and edited and all that stuff.
Right.
I know plenty of people. My friend Mike Zung does great video stuff, and he edits the heck out of his videos, and he'll spend all day, and they're really cool, right? But like, I don't have the editing skills. Like, that part to me is really intimidating. So I prefer a much more like casual, either an Instagram live or a YouTube live, like something where I don't have to go back and edit it. And again, I prefer a little bit more of a casual style versus something that's very produced. But again, that it totally depends on what your style is. But I do think clients and prospective clients really like to be able to see you in action.
Correct.
And again, it can be really simple. You don't have to be, explaining some super complicated financial concept. I think you can just be talking about something very straightforward. But it does give people a real feeling of who you are, what it's like to work with you. So I think it's pretty effective.
All right, I'm an advisor. I want to do video, just like
Hmm.
Danika. And I don't know what to do. Give me the one, two, three. So I test this out after listening to this podcast and give it a run.
There's two different sort of styles that you could practice with, but I think, again, really short form, Like, I not only do I like to do it casual, I'll record while I'm in the middle of a run. I'll just stop, so I'm, like, sweaty, but, like, I don't take multiple takes. I do, like, one.
One take and that is
One.
done. Mic drop.
And sometimes it doesn't work, and I'm like, "Eh," but if I take 5 takes, it
Mhm.
usually means it's not my day or something, like, it's just not working, and I just scrap it and kinda try another day. So I think, do something 60 seconds, really short and sweet. The other thing that I think can be really successful and a really slightly less intimidating way to go about it is to start recording videos for your clients if you're not already.
Yeah.
So whether it's, there's a bunch of different video things that we do, but you could do, for example, after you meet with a prospect, 30-second video. Hey, Desarte, it was so cool to meet with you and learn about your new baby. And like, I'd be really excited to work with you.
Mhm.
The end. I mean, how hard is that, right?
Yeah.
But it's so unusual for a client to get something like that I think they really respond like, oh, wow, like this is just for me.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's a little bit special. And that to me is less intimidating because you're not sending it or putting it on the internet. You're just sending it directly to one person. And so that could be a way to start to practice and sort of like flex that muscle.
Yeah, I think that is a gem. And I think what you're going for from is video for content versus video as an integrated strategy in a firm, right? So most times you have people come here and they're like, oh, yeah, I found these clients because I do videos. I put them on YouTube, they get likes, people funnel into our website, but that's where the buck stops, right? It's like, I got the client now, I win. Whereas you can take video for acquisition and then embed it throughout the entire process. So when you meet with somebody to review a financial plan or you meet them on an introductory call, right, you can send them a short video to say like, hey, I really appreciate our time. Whether or not you go with us, it was great to meet you and learn more about you. And I think that's a killer way to differentiate.
That's a huge
Yourself.
differentiator. How many advisors are doing that?
Not many.
We do use it throughout our practice. And another example would be, we have a short, like 5-minute investing video that we send to clients before we have their first investment meeting with them. And it's just kind of some general concepts. And this is our approach to investing. And, again, it's only 5 minutes long, but they can watch it 5 times. If they're like, wait, what was that thing about diversification? They can go back and watch it a couple times. So I think there's so much benefit in using it as a medium in a variety of ways, like content, engaging with clients. There's a lot of potential upside.
Tools that you're excited about. Obviously, advisors are talking about tools all day online. Right? Like, oh, I use this. This is what I prompt in Chat GPT. We're creating new tools for advisors to use to be more efficient. So what are you using now that excites you? And where do you think this whole thing is going in the future?
I mean, we're definitely using an AI note taker, which I feel like everybody's using now. We're using Jump, and some of the integrations with financial planning software and the CRM are pretty cool. And it really starts to, it makes our work so much more efficient. And it starts to raise the question of like, how much do we actually need some of the support staff doing some of this data entry and all that? Whereas, if somebody says something in a meeting, like, oh, I gotta raise, my salary is now $200,000, and you can just push a button and send that straight to your financial planning software. So I think some of those integrations are pretty exciting.
Do you feel like people can be solo longer because of some of the tools, right? Whereas like I reached the point of just critical mass or just being overwhelmed, where it's like I have to hire somebody to help me with these like really low hanging fruit tasks, but I just didn't have enough time to do it. And if I would have stopped and done those things, I would have been missing out on some growth or meeting perfect clients from our firm. Whereas now I feel like you have options before you get to the point where you're like, hey, let me go spend 50, 60, $70,000 for support staff. So as you see like the future, right, and you're heading towards this exit, you're getting the SEC registration, are you going to be slow to hire because you have these tools? Or do you think that just building community, sharing the wins with humans is more important or more valuable for you?
I think we will be slower to hire for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I
Man.
mean, it's sort of an open question, and I think we'll just have to modify as we go along and see how it actually works. But
Yeah.
I think there is the potential to need less bodies
Yeah.
to serve the same demographic that we're already serving. To say our current client base
Mhm.
could potentially be served with less bodies based on using some of these tools. And then in the future, I mean, it does raise the question of like, is the industry going to need paraplanners, and are we going to need some of these other roles? Like maybe those will just totally go away. We'll still need advisors, but it does, I have a lot of, I don't know if it's a concern. I'm curious how people that are getting into the industry will work their way up.
Yeah.
If some of those like lower level roles are no longer needed. So I think there's a lot that we don't know yet.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do think we are likely to be slower to hire.
I talked to Kittis last year, and he was like, it took 7 advisors and 3 support staff, like a crazy number, for their firm to hit $1 million in revenue, like in 1996. It might have been like 8 advisors. It was 12 people in total. Now, firms are doing that with like 2 advisors, 3 advisors, and 1 support staff. He said they had a woman that just opened envelopes for checks and filed the checks, right? Those jobs are gone. And I feel like this is a new iteration of that happening again. So if it only takes 1 or 2 advisors to hit $1 million in revenue, how many advisors will it take to hit $1 million in 5 years, 10 years? I don't know.
You could do it maybe part-time.
You know what I mean? You're a part-time advisor. You can just build your portfolio strategies in ChatGPT or Claude, set it up, it automates itself, and get on the phone once a quarter with a client. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff that'll happen between now and then that we haven't even thought of.
it's moving really fast. What are you excited for outside of the practice? Like growing, serving women?
You know, I've been excited about some of the conversations that are happening in the industry. I do feel like, people are a little concerned about talking about DEI right now. I think that will come back at some point, but, that seems to not be as much of a focus as it has been. So I hope that one comes back sooner rather than later. But I think like the life planning conversation and some of the financial therapy and all these other modalities and ways of interacting with clients, like that seems to be really taking off. And a lot of advisors are pretty aware that if they're not doing any of that, they're probably not serving their clients very well. Right. So I'm excited about how much that seems to have entered the conversation in a pretty mainstream way. Like even, at Edward Jones and all these other places, like they're actually spending time on client psychology and behavioral finance and things like that. So I'm excited about that shift. And I think we have a long way to go there. So it's kind of early days, but that's something I'm really, I'm happy to see how we're starting to incorporate that into the practices.
Yeah, and I want to just shout out the fact that you introduced me to a lot of amazing women who should be on the show. So I really want to just call that out really quickly. We're doing our best to get them on the show. Great call out, because they're awesome rock star women that are killing the game.
They are.
And we would love to have them on the show. Secondly, I do think that life planning, right, really focusing on client behavior and psychology will be a differentiator amongst financial advisors in the future. So if you're not helping your clients think differently about how they view their money, expand opportunities in their mind before their portfolios, you know what I mean, or alongside their portfolios, you might not be around, because clients need this. And it's important to not only water the actual physical dollars that are coming in, but also their mindset as well. So I think the shift in an advisor, especially with these technologies doing a lot of heavy lifting, our roles are going to change. And they're going to change really fast. So I think people need to focus on that. Where can people find you if they want to follow along with your journey, learn more about merging their firms? Because I've had a lot of conversations about that recently. How can they follow along?
I'm most active on LinkedIn right now, so Danika Waddell. I have been active on Instagram in the past, and I probably will be in the future, but that's Danika Waddell, CFP. And then our website is zenafp.com. So those are the places to find me.
Well, thank you for spending some time with me. And thank you all for watching this episode. Again, follow us, altruist.com/podcast for more. And Danika, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Desarte.
Until next time.
Thank you for listening to The Advisor Journey by Altruist. Brokerage-related products and services are provided by Altruist Financial LLC, a member of FINRA/SIPC. Results may vary. Altruist and its affiliates do not provide tax or legal advice.